Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Nightlight. It's going to be an amazing evening, especially as we're coming into a time of awakening on many different levels. I have with me tonight an amazing author who has written, obviously, an amazing book. I have Richard Kretz here with me, and he's written a book on the alchemical search for the unified field, using Pythagorean, Hermetic, and Shamanic journeys into invisible and etheric realms. He details an illustrative geometric approach for the creation of the Philosophers Stone. I think something that has not gotten enough press, so to speak, and it's coming into its own, and it's a fascinating journey. Using an oblong square created by three overlapping circles with the center circle squared, the same shape described in Freemasonry as the form of a Masonic Lodge. He compares his diagram to the depictions of the stone in Mesopotamian, Egyptian, and Hindu cultures, as well as floor plans for European cathedrals, showing how the sacred geometry of the oblong square elucidates man as mind, body, and spirit, encapsulating a soul. Describing the relationship between the alchemical oblong square and the electrical circuit of the brain, he details the operative process of the Philosopher's Stone, likening it to the servomechanism of the third eye located between the twin pillars of the cerebral hemispheres. Don't get too led astray by this language. It describes what we're doing, but we're going to talk in very simple terms. He explores how to navigate the twin pillars of the brain to find equilibrium, the third pillar. When the energies of our third eye are in equilibrium, we resonate as a harmonic waveform generator, and he shows how this can be achieved through meditation and the synchronizing vibration of vocal mantras. Drawing on the work of the Rosicrucians, Freemasonry, Hermeticism, sacred geometry, and Native American shamanism, this book presents an allegorical quest for the Philosopher's Stone and a path for attaining enlightenment. The essence of the book is about how we can transform to become better than we once were by improving our conversations with God through prayer and meditation. Readers benefit from a vast amount of knowledge presented in a way they can connect with, understand, and practice. Richard has a fascinating background. He's worked in the telecommunications and IT industries, and then studied transcendental meditation, and later spent 3 years with a Native American shaman. He is also a Freemason and has held many leadership roles within that particular organization. He also, not that it's of note to most of you, but it is to me, he lives in Churchill, Tennessee, which means he lives really near to me, kind of. it's a long state, so maybe he doesn't live as close as it seems. But I think that one of the magical things about this book is, while we all are looking towards ways to better ourselves and stretch ourselves and reach into the many gifts and talents that we have within us, he gives you, depending on what your background is, he gives you lots of different ways in order to achieve and understand the journey that we take internally in order to manifest externally some of the magic that we carry within. So I hope I know you're going to enjoy this discussion. I have had the pleasure of talking with him several times off the air, so having him on the air is definitely a thrill for me as well. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Well, thank you, Barb. That was a wonderful introduction, and I feel honored and privileged to be a guest on your show.
Well, it's, nightlight means, I like to hope that in many ways I can provide a flicker of light for people who are searching. And with all the different authors that have come on the show, everybody has a grain of truth or two, and so that there's something to pick up no matter what the title of the book is. There's always something there of a spiritual nature that for those with eyes to see and ears to hear and hearts to understand can gather it. And not that I've evolved very far, but this is how I journey towards enlightenment within myself. And hopefully scattered along the pathway are hints and sort of grains of sand and elements of truth that others can pick up, incorporate into their lives, and help them to evolve in whatever direction towards enlightenment they're taking. And after 15 years, we're still going. And your book I found fascinating, and I'm so glad that you wrote it.
You again. And I would agree with you wholeheartedly in that, we're just, individual candles with small flickering flames. And by ourselves, we can cast a certain amount of light. But what is terrific is when we're able to get together and combine our light. That, really provides a lot of illumination. And that's what we should be trying to do as we move forward on our journey.
Well, I think what you've done with the book is fascinating. You've taken a whole bunch of different modalities, and you've explained the pathway within, and you've wound it all around the Philosopher's Stone, and of course that's something that so many of us have heard about fleetingly, and the search for it, of course, but in many cases, to my mind, understanding the Philosopher's Stone is more important to me than finding the Ark of the Covenant or the Chalice or the Spear of Destiny or any of those, because it's an inner tool, it's not an outer tool, and I think what you've done with the book is show people how the source, the search for enlightenment, the search for ascending within our own consciousness towards a greater connection to the source is something that we do within ourselves. It isn't something that we do, with our hands mechanically. And not only do the different modalities that you've used, they all show people flat out exactly what's going on. But of course, my love of all of your material that you've shared with us is your journey with your shaman, the shaman that you studied with Charles. But before we get into that, the title of your book is a tongue twister, but it's the alchemical search for the unified field. Can you explain what the unified field is for those who are wondering out there? Because I've given the title to a lot of people, and when I say it's the search for inner awareness and transmutation and transformation, that they get, but the unified field is not something that is commonly thrown around in everyday conversation. So can you kind of explain a little bit of that for my listeners?
If we're talking about the unified field, we can get deep into, quantum mechanics or quantum physics, discussion of Einstein. But I prefer to try and keep it, as simple as possible. Really what the unified field is a search for oneness, a search for our place in the universe. And my search, it began, many years ago with questions. And I began this quest, and I felt like Don Quixote, when I started off, chasing windmills, because I couldn't get answers. So it was, incumbent upon me to, pursue my quest, and pursue answers to these questions. And the reason that I wrote the book was because I knew if I had these questions, other folks, such as your listeners and my readership, had the same questions and the same frustrations. So, what I was really looking at is how can I communicate the quest, the experience, in a way that folks can understand and benefit from and put to use. So the layout of the book is pretty straightforward. When you're reading through it, you'll find that the majority of it really addresses the operative mechanics of the stone, of meditation and prayer. And with that in mind, the thoughts are that the better we can understand how the mechanics of something and how it works, then the better we can have a rapport or a communication with the microcosm, with God, with deity. And to exemplify that, then I transition over to the use of my experience, with a Native American shaman, that shamanic experience, which is very nature-based. And it was quite eye-opening. And that provides the application of actually what we learn on how the stone and how meditation works. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I think that all of us are having those same questions constantly within our minds. And those who are, I call them seekers, and I've been a seeker all my life, looking for answers in so many different places. And on an intellectual level, I mean, you nailed it. You've got it down to the tree of life. You've got it down to the chakra system. You've got it down to the Pythagorean stuff. You've put all of these. I would call them all of these ways and functions of understanding the process. But it wasn't until I got to the shamanism that it became a practice rather than an intellectual pursuit. And for me, and so, when I got to Charles, the shaman that you studied with, I fell in love with the process. I mean, I understand intellectually all of the other stuff, but when it came time to his practices, it then became obvious to me that we are the Philosopher's Stone, and it's within us to bring it into reality to become a living expression of what it symbolizes. And then everything fell together beautifully. And I just, how did you know that you had to look for the spiritual, the shamanic material? How did you stumble across it, or was that something that you just came to naturally?
That was, to be rather frank, serendipitous. It was not something I sought nor expected. My emphasis, because I've been a seeker, as many have for most of my life, and I became entrenched in, the Western thought, a way of thinking and doing things with regard to occultism and things. And I found that, I kept hitting my head on this ceiling, and I'd go so far, and I couldn't advance any further. And then I found, with the application of, the Eastern mysticism, Vedic science, again, that seemed to help, but I encountered the same difficulty. So, basically when you're discussing Western thought, it's Hermeticism and those things. And then with the Eastern mysticism, it's the Vedic sciences, pretty much out of the Indian subcontinent. But then, shortly after I was raised as a Mason, I met Charles, and it was quite by accident, and we struck up this friendship, and he slowly introduced me to shamanism. I mean, I'd had an interest, in nature most of my life. As a kid, I ran around in the woods and the fields and that kind of stuff and was curious about many things. But it wasn't until I met Charles that I was able to really gain an understanding of and an appreciation of what I was looking at. What was nature about? What did it have to offer? How could I benefit from it? How can others benefit from it? So these nature-based life lessons, this experience with Charles, really provided, the opportunity to bring everything together. And what I found, Barb, is that regardless of the approach you take, whether it's through, Western thought, Eastern mysticism, or shamanism, they all have, 4 similarities. Their only difference is that the approach they take may be coming at a problem from a different direction. So what does that mean to you? It means that, okay, if you're into Hermeticism or the Vedic sciences, that, maybe you're only going to go so far with it. You end up hitting your head on the ceiling like I did and get frustrated because you're not advancing. You're missing something, even though you can't put your finger on it to know what it is. But maybe if you back up and take a different direction and apply one of these other methodologies, you don't have to keep banging your head on the door. Maybe you can just walk around the wall. And the other thing is that for every door, or, if you're banging your head on the door and you can't get through it, more often than not, there are windows of opportunity that are open. It's just a matter of perception, saying, okay, I can't become consumed by this one methodology. Maybe if I can back up, take a break, and get a different perspective and try something else, I'll find a solution. It's that simple.
It is, and I think that's where everybody stumbles. And so many people think that it's hard. It's so many people think that it has to be hard and have 20 different levels to it in order for us to understand it and to apply it to our lives. And I have met people that the rituals they go through to get to where they're going are just so laborious that it's a surprise. I'm surprised that they go through all of the rituals, and yet at the very end, it basically comes down to a form of meditation or prayer of some sort that enables you to let go of the mundane physical world and drift into and become a part of the etheric spiritual world. And it just, for me, it's always amazed me so much that so many people are able to just blend in with nature and become a part of it, and yet other people just don't understand what the process is. And it's different strokes for different folks. And I think that the thing that has always amazed me and it sort of clicked on in my head and shone light on a lot of stuff was that phrase over the Oracle of Delphi, to know thyself. And basically, I tell everybody that your path is going to be different from my path, but that doesn't mean we all can't get to the same place ultimately. It's just everybody's pathway is a little bit different. I've had a number.
It's a journey. It's not. Yeah, it's a journey. It's not a destination. And as you're stating there, the path we take, it may be different, but where we end up ultimately may well be the same. We're all seeking the same thing.
Well, and I tell people, just like you said, it's the journey, not arriving, because once you arrive, you will, after you've caught your breath, you'll realize there's another mountain to climb. So that your lifetime is your lifetime's a continuous journey, and there's a point to every different stage of it.
Exactly, and in the book, what I alluded, or the analogy that I use is it's climbing the mountain of knowledge and seeking the flower of wisdom. That's as succinct as I can make it.
Well, and I think some of the journeys that Charles, the shaman that you worked with, I mean, at least one of those journeys you went on literally was to find a flower for him.
Yes, it was. And I felt that exemplified, the entire experience with him. It was just sending me out on this vision quest to find a flower. It was, in the middle of nowhere. And when I found it and came back and I showed him a picture of it that he had asked for and told him about it, his reply was, I'm happy that you found it. And the other question that folks have really is, okay, well, what is this mountain of knowledge? It's the acquisition of knowledge, the acquisition of experience, and being able to put it to use. That's what we're all really seeking. But it's the prudent application of that knowledge based on our experiences that helps us to acquire wisdom.
Exactly.
It's the same basically as education and training. Education is something that, that's imparted in a classroom environment where, there's discussion of philosophy, of concepts, of theories and ideas. But it's not until you actually get out into the real world and put that knowledge to use and acquire the experience that you are also able to make, good decisions, which is a result of the wisdom that you have acquired.
Yeah, and I think too, everybody finds their own wise person. I guess it's a better name for it. He was definitely a very magical person. He was a very wise person. He was a very spiritual person. He probably was here to bring insight to those few people that actually were seeking it. And the fact that he was on a mountain and you had to go in search of him, speaks volumes. It's sort of like, he had great wisdom, yet he lived very simply, and he didn't on the mountain anyhow. And you were at a place where you could recognize that he had the spiritual wisdom, and you were there to learn from him, and you spent a great deal of time, 3 years, I think you said, that he took you through awakening inside of yourself. And that's what people are looking for, but so many times people want to either take a class and get a certificate, or they want a quickie, just teach it to me and then thank you, I'll move on. But that's not how you learn the spiritual elements of life.
No, traditionally the way it works is that when the time is right, the teacher will appear, and not before. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have asked me to teach them. And, the thing is if someone has to ask to be taught about something, then they're not going to be a very good student. They don't have the inner desire. They don't really want it bad enough, and, it's just one of those things where, again, when the time is right, the teacher will appear, and not before. You don't go in search of a teacher. Again, the teacher will be available when the time is right.
I think that there was a wonderful story, and exactly where I found it, I'm not sure, but there was a teacher who had people that were studying with him, and it was of a spiritual nature, and they would sit in a group, and people would ask a question, and he would answer it, and this one man asked a question, and the teacher didn't answer him, and then he went on, and this went on for months and months and months, and he finally asked the teacher, I keep asking you a question, and you keep not answering it. And the teacher said, you haven't asked the question right yet. And when you ask the question right, you'll have the answer yourself. And to me, that blew me out of the water, because, if you're looking for something that hard, you can't pose the right question until you actually know the answer on some level inside of yourself. But
absolutely, it's very Zen.
Yes. Yeah, it was in that particular line that story came out, and it made sense. It's not. You can't just sit down with somebody who's really, really wise and very evolved and say, "Well, teach me spirituality," and that's not how it works. You experience it, you learn it by doing it, and making it a part of your everyday reality. But I loved. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say absolutely. The student has to have a very vested interest in in the journey that they are about to embark on. And that means they have to have some skin in the game. They can't just lay it all on the teacher.
True. But I think, isn't life a spiritual journey? And most people don't realize that every day presents them with so many different elements of spiritual wisdom that all they have to do is be perceptive to pick up on the synchronicities and the coincidences and how nature can give you answers to questions. And I think that your journey with Charles was exactly that you became more and more aware of how attached you are to nature and how nature will speak to you if you're observant enough.
Absolutely.
I think was it your... Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. As I said, absolutely. You have to be very in tune with yourself and with nature and aware of the world around you. I'll share an experience that I had many years ago, probably 20 years ago by now. I was leading a hike, and I had several photographers with me. It was a nature thing where we were taking pictures of landscapes, of flowers, birds, all kinds of stuff. And this reporter had been detailed to tag along. And, you know, as we're getting towards the end of the day, she asked me why I spent so much time learning about nature. And I just had this quizzical look and didn't think twice about it. And I says, well, this is where God, this is where deity is. You know, this is my church. When I'm out here with nature, you know, the aroma of the flowers, the leaves and the trees, you know, that's the incense. When I hear the birds and the insects buzzing, you know, that's the choir singing. You know, those are the hymns. You know, the sky above me is, you know, vaulted. You know, this is a cathedral. You know, this is where God lives. So when I'm with nature, you know, I'm at church, because when we go to church, we have a high degree of reverence, at least we should, and respect for what is around us and for the experience.
Exactly. And I think so many people don't understand that. I know I garden. I'm a flower gardener. I don't have as much luck with vegetables, but flowers for sure. And I used to in the home that we had where I grew up, there were street lights on two sides of the property, so I could work in my garden, you know, through the night and have plenty of light in order to, you know, plant and prune or do whatever I needed to do. And those were the most magical moments I think I have ever spent, where I was, there were no cars, there was no noise, there were the crickets and the foghorns that were on the water that was just beyond our property. And it was so holy an experience that it sometimes brought me to tears just standing there and listening to the crickets, and you could hear the plants grow at that point in time, and it was it was a oneness. It was a oneness that was just so profound that, you know, my mother said to me, "Why do you prefer to garden at night?" And I said, "Well, first of all, I'm allergic to the sun, but I said that's when it's most peaceful. That's when I talk to the plants. That's when I talk to the little people. That's when I, you know, work with the ground, and the ground is moister there then and cooler to work with. So it's to me a better time to plant rather than putting plants in soil that has been baked hard by the sun." And, you know, she said, you know, that makes a great deal of sense.
Most definitely, and I'll share a couple other things here. One of the things I emphasize in the book is that when we're meditating, that we have to be properly grounded. And I'm very clear that, you know, to be properly grounded, you have to be in direct contact with the earth, that you don't have your shoes on, that you're preferably barefooted, you know, so that you're able to, you know, have that connectivity, to be grounded with the earth. Because it's just like with lightning, you know, all that energy from the earth, and then it goes upward from there, whether it's to your mind or to the sky. The energy comes from the earth, and it moves up through our chakras, through our bodies, you know, to our mind. So if you're going to have effective meditation or effective prayer, that's an important consideration. The other thing in line with what you were sharing is we have a rather large greenhouse. And when my wife works in there, it doesn't matter what time of year it is, she will go in there and she works barefooted for the same reasons that you shared. And she'll just, if we're growing vegetables in there at that time, she'll just, barefooted, sit on the ground and pick a couple vegetables and eat them raw. And if you've not tried that, you will find that it's a wonderful experience. The taste of your labors, growing something in that way, it just passes anything that you can imagine getting from the store. And I don't care if it's a radish, a piece of lettuce, a tomato, what have you. It's something that is definitely worth trying. But again, it comes from being grounded. And she's often been asked, well, how are you able to grow such marvelous vegetables? And it's because of that connectivity with the ground that she has that they're growing in.
Oh, yeah. When, for the longest time, for 50 years, I lived in the Northeast. And around the January time frame, February, I would go to a local nursery, and they saw me coming every time, and it was like, oh, here comes that crazy lady. I asked them if I could please just take off my feet and walk through their greenhouse. And, because that was warm and the earth was warm, and I would spend hours just walking around the plants in my bare feet because I missed that connection. It was so amazing that, and they would let me do it for about a month, and then my ground would be, so that I could actually walk on it. But, 3 feet of snow made it hard to get to the ground. But it was an amazing time to have those kind of gardens and be able to do that. And when I was in Connecticut, I wanted to create my own walking meditation path around my garden and stuff like that. And I was going to do it slowly because it was a very large area, but I did it all in 1 year. And the second year of my garden, it was all perennials. It looked like an old English garden that had been there forever because I was out there constantly talking to the plants and constantly working with them and constantly, becoming one with them. And when you have that experience, you have magic in your hands. It's just amazing.
Absolutely, and that's something many folks don't realize is that, we are all part of the same thing, the same planet. We're codependent. For example, if you're looking at a plant or a tree, yes, they set down roots and they can draw their water and their nutrients using their roots. But what extends them are the microcordial threads of the fungi that actually create about 90% of the biomass of a forest. So it's these microcordial threads that provide the connectivity and extend the ability of plants and trees to be able to, sustain themselves, to get their nutrients and get their water. And yet it's these same plants that feed, the animal and insect life and us. So we're all dependent on, one level or another. And when we are communicating with them, verbally or whatever, that, it's just, an added vibration that enhances that ability, and integrates us within that environment, to be not just individuals, but part of something that is much, much larger.
Well, I think that your book does illustrate how we are a part of nature. to an extreme degree, because we are electromagnetic beings. There is an electricity that flows through our body that can connect to the earth, it can connect to a lot of things, but there is a oneness that is so profound, and so many people cut themselves off from the oneness that is around them, and just are focused on smaller things, so that in many ways they don't feel as enriched as they could be. Now, for somebody that's not doing this, they may have a beautiful life and a wonderful life, and they really, they have their thing in their way, and that's what's important. But I personally believe that it's the one of the purposes of a physical lifetime is for the spirit to enjoy and be able to connect to the nature around them and other people, and feel that oneness that they knew as spirit, but they kind of lost the connection when they became physical.
Exactly. And as you're saying, many folks just are not aware of it, or they're not in tune with it. But if you look back at history, the ancients were very much aware of it. All of the sacred sites across the globe are aligned with, these ley lines, these telluric sites. You have to ask yourself the question: if they weren't aware of it, why would they erect all their sacred sites across the globe, on these intersections of magnetic lines? There has to be a reason for it. And in order for them to do that, they had to be able to sense it, at least at some level, which escapes us today.
Well, yeah, true. And if you go way back in history, even communities had a group energy, a group mind that were able to telepathically connect to one another. We have lost so many of the gifts and the talents that are inherent within all of our bodies, because we've gotten more and more industrialized, so that we're not connecting on the many different levels that we could if we just would pay attention to allowing them to evolve and become a part of our reality. And when everybody has been in places where they feel really good or they don't feel good at all, and that's where the energy comes in. And the more you become aware of the energy that is surrounding you, the more intuitive you become as to places that are good for you and places that are not good for you. And it's different for everybody. There are places that I just don't go because I don't like the feeling I get. And not everybody pays attention to that. And I think that part of what's important in this whole process is that you become more aware of what's happening around you and within you, and you're feeling as to the vibration that is coming off people and places and situations. And once you start to work with that feeling, then that leads you in the directions that are healthy for you. It's an amazing feeling to become one with the energetic of a place or a situation. And it's not something that you learn in a classroom. It's something that you learn by experience, by meditation, by writing things down, by being aware. And your book is, when you went on that vision quest, if you can kind of talk about what your vision quest was about, and the things that you were challenged by when you went through them, and how you trusted to your inner sight as opposed to your outer sight. You still there? Richard? Well, he went on a vision quest. He was sent on a vision quest by Charles. And in this quest, he was told that the mountain would challenge him 3 times. And the times that he was challenged... Are you back?
Yeah, I don't know what happened now. So, yes, I'm back. And you wanted to know about my vision quest. There were several. So which one really would you like to know about?
Well, I know you were told the mountain would challenge you 3 times.
Yes. Okay, yeah, I had gone on a number of vision quests. The first one, it was, they all start off as small tests where Charles would, ask me questions about different plants or different things in nature. And the first true quest was kind of an accident. It was, he had taught me early on how to grow some native tobacco. And when I had done that and I had harvested it, I made a gift of what I had to him. And without realizing it, it was a very big deal. So, at that point, he's going to dig a little bit deeper and ask me even more questions. And we went out for a walk on the mountain like we normally did. And we stopped at a spring to get a drink. And as I was laying down and getting this drink, he asked me if I saw something in the water. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to be seeing? And he realized, you're supposed to see a white flower. And so I kept staring at the water. Nope, I didn't see anything. And, ultimately, he told me the name of the flower I'm supposed to see. And with that, I was eventually, after quite an effort, able to visualize actually what this flower was and where it was located. And we went and we found it. That evening, he made a big deal out of it. And we had a ceremony. And I won't go into all the details of that right now. It's probably better to read it in the book. But what the ceremony involved was we were in his, what do you want to call it? I'm having a brain cramp here. His sweat lodge. And there were things that were done, ceremonially. And he asked me to smoke something, and I didn't know what it was. So I end up having this out-of-body experience where we both turned into ravens and were flying around, which was, that was a bit of a trip, I have to admit. And with that experience, it was an awakening. So I was able to get very in touch with my deep inner self. There's a whole myriad of things that you go through in an experience like that. It can be very frightening. It can be very rewarding. And it's also very dangerous. But, that was the first. So that was, something, and again, that's related in the book. But I think the most interesting experience involves one where I'm pretty sure it was on a solstice, where that evening we had gone up to a rock. Actually, it's a cliff on the top of a mountain that has a spectacular view to the west. So we were there observing the setting sun on the solstice. And that is a time, when you're looking at the equinoxes and the solstices, that's when the earth and sky come together. When the upper world sits with the lower world and the world that we live in. That's when they all come together and have their discussions. They're united. So we did our ceremonial thing there, and once it got dark, we began quite a trek at night, about 12 miles, maybe 14. I don't recall off the top of my head, but it was across the ridge of a mountain. And during that, I won't call it a quest, but that experience, there were encounters with a den of rattlesnakes. There was a bear, and there were coyotes. It culminated by going into some clefts of rock called the channels. And once in there, I must have passed out and had been out for a couple of days anyway. Why, I don't know. But essentially, it was a place of death and rebirth. And when we're on not just a shamanic experience, but when we're dealing with the occult, and by occult I mean things or experiences that are hidden, we must die before we can be reborn. So while I'm in these crevices, these channels, theoretically, it was a death experience where I had gone to the upper world and then to the lower world and then was reborn. And once that occurred, and right before sunrise, we emerged from the crevices and watched the sunrise, I realized that it was the place, it was actually the physical place where we had been 2 years previously when we, had flown as ravens. And it was a very, very emotional time. But again, that's part of the initiatic experience. And within Native American cultures, with that in mind, it involved using some paint on the face, and in this instance, from a shamanic perspective, involved a red, a white, and a red stroke of paint, symbolizing, life, death, and rebirth. And that's what an initiatic experience is about. It's all about life, existence, then dying, and then the cycle continues with a rebirth. So, it's not to be a scary thing. It's just part of that universal cycle, that natural cycle. And what the experience does is it really drives that point home. It really emphasizes that, we are only a small part. We're just, a speck, a microcosm within the greater macrocosm of the universe. That we are, just a small part of something that is much greater than we are.
Absolutely. But I think one thing that's important for everybody to realize, from my perspective, when you're going through a process like this, a journey like this, as deeply as you went through, Charles was there with you the entire time. So that going through an opening like this, I know something that has become more and more popular is the ayahuasca, and I would caution everybody that is not something that you do without preparation and a guide. It's nothing to play with, and if you're not ready for it, the universe will let you know.
Absolutely. And another aspect to that is many of these experiences do involve psychotropics, and you have to be able to monitor your health. It's not something, as you said, that you want to play around with. The use of psychotropics, regardless of which one it may be, can be lethal and oftentimes is. And, you may have an allergic reaction. It may be, the dosage is incorrect. There's lots of things that can go wrong. So, as you're stating, you don't want to do this without a guide. If you're doing it by yourself, that's an accident waiting to happen. It's extraordinarily dangerous.
Well, I think that so many times people think they are ready to open that portal. And if you're thinking you're not in the right place, because analytical stuff of the mind doesn't come close to the spiritual portals of spirit. So that I know people that have taken class after class after class after class, and I've learned it all, I've experienced it all, I have certificates to prove it, but the reality is that your life is not ready for that experience. And
right,
when you can't sign up for something like this. You have to truly be ready and be led into it. That's my opinion.
Right. And I think, the way a Mason would say it is you have to be prepared for it in your heart. You have to be truly, duly and truly prepared. If you're not, it might not go well. And again, I would strongly caution folks that are contemplating, such an experience to do a very deep self-assessment. Is it something that, number one, that you would derive a benefit from? Two, are you really prepared mentally and physically? Can you endure it? And, really, what is your goal? How does that fit in with how you perceive your life moving forward? Is it within your plans? Is it within deity's plans? There's a lot of things to take a look at, as well as, even if you're with a teacher, how knowledgeable and how experienced is your teacher to, be concerned about your safety? At the end of the day, that's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, and how able is your teacher to actually journey with you? Because that's part of the whole process. I mean, they're there and to protect, but not instruct. And that's something
absolutely.
I think people
it's
have
a shared.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a shared experience. It's not an individual one.
Mhm. So it's but we.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the reason that it must be a shared experience is because it goes to the collective consciousness. Okay, well, it's not so much about you, the individual. It's about being an active participant and member of the collective consciousness.
Mhm. Well, also, too, when you go through something like that, in many ways, it means you have something to share. So that you're being welcomed into a community where you have something to share with the rest of the community as well. So that
absolutely
learning, learning and growing. See, that's the big deal. You were prepared for that. You were stretched to be able to embrace and bring to the table a part of yourself. And
exactly.
that's what I.
as you read through the book on that part of it, you will find that, you know, with every one of those experiences that I had, in preparation and as an integral aspect of it, Charles made it a point to give thanks. You know, whether it was using the corn or whether it was smoke, you know, we always gave thanks. And that if I survived and I did well, you know, it was not just the giving it the thanks. It was, you know, singing, literally singing, you know, the praises of the experience, you know, because that became part of my song, my being. And that's something else to take into consideration. You know, if you're going to go through this, you know, is it going to be a part? It's going to be a part of you. So you must be thankful, and you must, you know, integrate it as a part of yourself, as your song, your being.
Well, I think that's one of the important parts of spirituality, from my perspective, is that you know, while one learns and grows, one is also sharing that, and not only, you know, and living the lessons so that you become an example of your belief system, as opposed to it's not the words, it's the actions. And you know, not everybody is going to be a teacher verbally, but they can certainly become a teacher in their actions, and the kindness, the generosity, the compassion, and the love that they radiate enhances their reality, and therefore enhances anybody who comes within their venue. So it's a magical time.
And it most definitely is. And I think we touched on this the other day. You know, it's not a matter of leading by example so much. It's living by example, and there's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we live by example in quietly, you know, doing what we do every day. You know, whether it's, you know, helping others through charity, just going about our business, you know, and whether we realize it or not, others are paying attention. And that's what they're looking to, you know, more than, you know, a leader. A leader, you know, is someone who can influence others to do certain things. But when we actually live it, that's a big, big difference.
Well, absolutely. And I think that you know, the most profound teachers that I've ever experienced or you know, rubbed elbows with over the last almost 80 years have not been standing on pedestals claiming that they are a spiritual teacher. They are, it's their energy that they are radiating. It's the simplicity of the perfection that they have within that draws you in, and you learn from them. But it's not something you don't have a name tag, you know, shaman here or wisdom keeper here, or you know, hello, my name is keeper of wisdom. I mean, it doesn't happen that way. And I think that so many people are so into labels and titles that they've forgotten the actions are more important.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and, you know, having, you know, numerous pieces of paper on the wall, you know, that sends up a red flag to me, you know, because this person, it signifies to me anyway that, you know, if a person has to have, you know, a sheaf of a wall that has papers on it, you know, to justify that they are who they claim to be, then, to my mind, they're not living a life of humility, which, as you've pointed out, what most of the true teachers do, within the occult realm. They're not in there, for themselves. You don't hear them talk about their abilities or capabilities, that they've done this or done that, or discuss their education or anything. They just simply go out and very humbly, participate in life. And generally, it's helping others without the expectation of acknowledgement or reward. And that, my friend, is true charity. And charity really is nothing more than love in action. They do it out of love.
Absolutely. My favorite story of that illustrates this is Gandhi. He was at his compound at some point in time, where, dusty roads to his hut and stuff like that. And a woman brought her son to Gandhi, and, Gandhi met them, and he said, what can I do? And she said, tell him not to eat candy. It's going to rot his teeth. And Gandhi looked at this little boy, 8 or 9 years old, and said to her, come back in 5 days and we'll talk. And she said, we just walked 10 miles over dusty roads. Can't you say something now? And he said, no, come back in 5 days. And so they trudged back over the miles, and it took them all day to get there, and then another day to get home. And then 5 days later, they did the same walk again over the barefoot, dusty roads, the whole thing. And they came to his compound, and he walked out of his little hut, and he said to her, how can I help? And she said, we were here 5 days ago. Tell him not to eat chocolate because it will rot his teeth. And Gandhi looked at the young man, and he said, don't eat chocolate. It's going to rot your teeth. And the little boy looked at him and said, yes, sir. And the woman looked at Gandhi and said, you could have told him that 5 days ago. And Gandhi said, 5 days ago I wasn't eating chocolate. So that, he had to be able to have the conviction behind his words that would create an action.
Yes. And, that brings to that. That's a wonderful story. And it brings to mind a series that was very popular on TV. I think it was back in the 70s. Yeah, it must have been in the 70s, called Kung Fu with Kwai Chang Caine. Yeah. And if you've watched that series, what Kwai Chang experiences is a number of very similar lessons. And here he is. He's a kung fu master, a martial artist who, when he chooses to be, can be quite deadly, yet, he really prefers not to hurt anyone, to get involved in a fight or an altercation of any kind. And he's extraordinarily humble. In his quietness, it attracts many, many people, and gains or garners their respect because of the way he lives, which is very simplistic.
Yeah, it's and this doesn't mean that you have to live in a mud hut or anything like that, but the essence of the Philosopher's Stone, the essence of looking for enlightenment and transmutation and ascension within yourself spiritually, can be worked at and addressed by anyone in any stage of life. It's just a matter of becoming that belief. If it's important enough to you, if you know that there is something more and you are seeking it, then you're halfway there. It's just a matter of beginning to practice the awareness and the compassion within yourself, and that's what opens all of those portals and there's those doors. And that's how we become the Philosopher's Stone. I mean, was the Philosopher's Stone real, or was it something that somebody made up? Because to my mind, it was a word that illustrated a concept within every individual, as opposed to being a regular stone that could transmute, gold from iron and stuff like that. But if we work on ourselves enough, we could energetically be able to do that. So is that really, is the stone a representative of a concept as opposed to being a physical one, being a spiritual one?
Well, that's a good point, and it's a good question. Because the stone in its essence is about transformation, and what I'm discussing with regard to the stone is spiritual transformation. It has other applications as well. But to answer your question, is the stone real? Is it something that's physical, that's tangible? Or is it an idea or a concept? That's really indeterminate. But here's the thing, Barb. If the stone isn't real, then why have most of the intelligent people, or I shouldn't say most, why have many of the most intelligent, highly regarded people, throughout history, pursued, attainment of this stone? There must be something to it.
Well, one would think, Einstein, Tesla, to name a few. But it doesn't make sense. If that's the case, if you've got something that has come down through time, and we're still looking for it, then there's got to be something to it. But if the stone doesn't exist and all the stone did was represent the philosophy of it, then you have to look at some of the other objects that have come down through time, and is that the same with them? Ark of the Covenant, the chalice. Are these physical things, or are they spiritual philosophies that have been portrayed by a physical concept, and then over time we have forgotten the fact that it is just a symbol and not the reality, and we're looking for a symbol that doesn't exist because the reality is inside of us.
Absolutely. When I'm discussing, the stone, spiritual transformation, when we're talking about meditation as a vehicle for the attainment of enlightenment, at the end of the day, really what we're left with is the idea that whatever changes need to be made, that can be made, are within ourselves. It's within our inner being, and if we're able to improve ourselves to become better than we once were, that in turn improves our ability to integrate with the universe at large, and that's where we get into the realm of enlightenment. As we stated at the beginning of the show, a discussion of, we're each an individual candle, but when we all come together as one, we really illuminate the room, or we can illuminate the world. But it starts with each of us, within ourselves. So that's where we have to begin. That's our starting point. That's the path that we take the first steps on, on our journey.
Well, and the fact that, our spirit does incarnate lifetime after lifetime after lifetime for a reason, for a purpose. It's not just a wheel that is endless that, will go on forever. There is a time when we get to that point, when we have evolved to the point where we are using all of our talents and our gifts, where we are, our reality has been so improved because of that. I mean, look at the tests that they've done with plants that are yelled at and plants that are ignored and loved. I mean, the power that we have within us is profound, and it transcends space and time as well. And yet they do these cute little exercises to prove that the energy that we send to a plant, whether we're here or on another continent, it knows no time or space. It knows it is loved and therefore it grows. It knows that it's ignored and therefore it wilts. So why can't people take that and transfer it over to the concept of people to people, or people to animals even? When I used to travel a lot, I would spend time each day connecting to my animals that were at home, and letting them know I loved them and sending them love and energy, and they never were afraid, because they, I think there was that connection, because I've seen it with plants. So it would absolutely have to be the same with animals and then with other humans, and yet we don't seem to take that leap. Why not?
Yeah, that's a very good, it's a fair question to ask. Folks, we started off by asking about the unified field. And, Einstein is mentioned in that line. And what is interesting is that he wrote a letter to his daughter Alice. And in that letter, he explained that, really, love equates to, his theory on relativity, which is E equals mc squared. He said, really, the foundation of it all is love, and that's really, that's quite profound when you think about it.
Oh, absolutely, and again, I sometimes, most of the time, I refer to the human body as like an avatar, like a really expensive car, and how we just don't have the owner's manual to be able to press all of the buttons and whistles that come equipped with it. And I think that's how we are on a spiritual level. We are a spirit inside a physical avatar, and while we know that there are possibilities out there, we're searching diligently for many to find how do we switch those buttons on? How do we turn those knobs? How do we, like the Buddha? I mean, he was on one side of the river that was flooding, and everybody had to go to the other side, and everybody turned away for a minute, and then there was Buddha on the other side. That's transmutation. That's transporting yourself across a river. We're all capable of stuff like that, and yet we're searching. We're searching externally for an internal feature, which is kind of silly.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the major religions, across the globe, you'll find that the most common element in all of them, without exception, is love. And what Einstein said to his daughter Alice is that love is the most powerful force there is because it has no limit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, says it all in a nutshell.
Well, absolutely. And when I've interviewed thousands of people, and for those that have that are spiritually active in the field, there is not a one of them that has not said meditation is one of the greatest tools you could have or use. And it's simple, and it doesn't cost anything. and I think that
some folks get caught up, on meditation, and some of the terms that we use amongst ourselves, for those who are seekers, can be scary to those who aren't familiar with the journey itself. And meditation is one of those words that is oftentimes misconstrued. And a word that folks are generally more comfortable with is prayer. And prayer is just a form of meditation. And it essentially does the same thing, because we're trying to align ourselves, calm ourselves. We're trying to divest ourselves of, whatever our earthly issues happen to be, and burn off our ego, as Eckhart Tolle would say, to become better than we once were. And when we're able to do that through meditation or through prayer, that's where we're able to find that our communication, our rapport with ourselves and with the universe at large vastly improves.
Oh, yeah. I think that, too, so many people feel they have to labor to reach that point in time within themselves, and it's so simple. And the workshops and all sorts of things that people become involved in. I think the other thing here for me, and I can only speak on a personal level here, because I have found that this is a journey that is an internal one. It's a quiet one. It's not one that you do in a group. While you can do lots of things with a group energy that are really quite profound, when it comes to your own spiritual ascension, it's a personal thing with yourself. And again, to know thyself. Lots of us, don't always take the time to really understand why we do things, how we do things, and how it impacts others. And I think that's it's important for people to realize that we have within us such incredible power, and we don't use it. And so many times we seem to feel that our actions are our words are more important than our actions, when it's really our actions that are an illustration as to where we are spiritually speaking. And you can't judge somebody else's spirituality. That's a personal thing that you either feel or you don't feel, and it's a journey that everybody takes. And sometimes you look at people and you think, they're a loser, and they're probably more in touch with their own selves than we are.
And here, another thought is that, all journeys begin with that first step. And that first step is self-improvement. And as we journey down that path, no one else can travel that path for us. We have to do it ourselves. We have to experience it ourselves. While others may be pilgrims on the same path, their experiences and their reasons for traveling that path and where they may ultimately go could be very different. So, the journey begins within us. And it's for ourselves that we begin it, for no other person. It's all on us.
Yeah, and I think that some of the rituals that you did with Charles were phenomenal. That one where you created a circle and you put perfect ears of corn at north, south, east, and west. And as I recall, it was a 3-day process, and you didn't eat for those 3 days. And then at the end of those 3 days, you roasted the 4 ears of corn, and you said it was the best meal you'd ever had.
Well, yeah. You're pretty hungry after 3 days, and we have to offer. And the idea behind offering up perfect ears of corn is you have to, sacrifice the best of yourself, and endure some pain and suffering in order to improve. Again, that's part of the transformative process.
Absolutely. I know. It's funny because there was a time where if I was struggling or suffering and, I was complaining and, saying things to the universe like, I know I wrote this up, but I was crazy and drunk at the time. Please take some of this and put it to another lifetime. And after years and years and years, I've become to realize that when I'm faced with a struggle, it's a gift because it's a challenge for me to grow beyond. And I address challenges so much differently now than I did much earlier in my life. And it's sort of like, oh my, is it time for another one of those? There's not the anger and the frustration. It's a challenge, and it's something, and it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't able and capable of growing beyond it. And it was a learning experience for me, so it's very exciting. And I've, on occasion been accused of being a Pollyanna, but I don't believe that's it. I believe that I celebrate the challenges now because it means that I'm at a place of transition and I'm going another level. I don't know how many levels there actually are, but I'm ready for another challenge, and isn't that exciting?
Yes, very much so. What I'm hearing is that you've been able to let go of the superfluities, or divest yourself of the superfluities of life and the negativities, and embrace a positive attitude. And I like to say PMA versus PMS, but with that in mind, yeah, you got it. But the thing is even in the worst of experience, if you have a positive attitude, a positive mindset, you can find something that you can learn and grow from, and that makes all the difference.
Oh, absolutely. But your book is such an example of that. I mean, you have given so many different levels of how people see things. You've given so many different examples as to how everything flows together, whether it's from the tree of life or whether it's from the chakra system or what, you've put it all out there so that everybody will find a section of your book that suddenly the light goes on and it's an aha moment that's just unbelievable, which is what I loved about your book.
And here's the thing, Barb. It took me many years to put that book together, but I'm at a point right now where I've gone through a lot in my life. I know you have. I know a lot of the listeners have. But what I enjoy more than anything is the gift of giving. Being able to help someone else out. And see the light in their eyes when, as for example, we're having these discussions, that all of a sudden the light just comes on and they get it. And they're able to start improving their lives. And hopefully, in living by example in that way, they can also, help someone else, and pay it forward. I like to, my current mantra is, let's stimulate some awareness, educate, and motivate and inspire people to be best that they can possibly be, in the eyes of God and their fellow man, regardless of what it is. You don't have to go out in search of whatever it is you want to be. Just be the best you that you can be. And I think that's all that God, really wants from us, is to be the best human being that we can be. And we do that through charity and by living by example.
Absolutely. And, and creativity is also a part of this, that if you have a piece of creativity in your life every day, then there's excitement there. And I love music, but I can't sing worth a darn, but I'll sing anywhere, even though I can't carry a tune in a basket, because I get joy from the music that is created around me, not necessarily by me. And, I have painted, but I'm not an artist, but I get joy from it. And so I think doing things that gives you joy, you don't have to be an expert. You just have to have fun doing what you do. And so many people...
there was a story that came out of Egypt,
we lost him again. Hopefully he'll come back and give us the story out of Egypt. But this is important, too. The element of creativity in your life links you with creation. You become a co-creator with the divine. And it doesn't matter what it is, so long as you are getting joy from the experience, whether it is whatever it is. There's so many different ways of putting joy into your life, and by doing that, you become radiant because there is magic in your life, and people are attracted to you. And if people are attracted to you, then they will find that kind of magic within. They'll seek it for themselves because they see how it enhances your life. So that it's really important that and this is because you're on a spiritual journey. It isn't just you satisfying an itch, so to speak. It's understanding that when you are radiating joy, you are radiating spirit, you are radiating love, and you are sharing the love that you have inside of you with anybody who comes into your sphere of reference. So it's an important thing to do.
Can you?
Yeah, you're back. Now, what happened in Egypt?
Okay. Okay. Well, the story about Egypt is that, supposedly when you die, you had to go before. I want to say it was Thoth. I could be mistaken. But anyway, you were asked two questions. The first question, in line with what we were discussing a moment ago, was, have you experienced joy in your life? And the second question was, have you provided joy to others? Two very simple questions, but they're very, very important, to, our spirituality about who we are and our purpose here on earth.
Absolutely. And I think as when you took your vacation a moment ago, that's what I was basically saying, that expressing your joy and the happiness that you have within you and your connection to by being creative, you are a co-creator with the infinite, and that links you even more strongly to the source of all creation. So that you don't have to be good. You just have to have fun expressing yourself on whatever level is most appropriate for you. And I think that's one of the important things to ascension and spiritual enlightenment and all of those big terms that are thrown around. The reality is that you are a living light of joy if you have that joy within you, and it radiates from you. You don't have to say anything, you just have to be. And it's a journey that is profound, and every lifetime, if you have the awareness of that quality within you and sharing it with other people by just being joyful within your own life, you draw people to you, and by your example, they will find that same pathway inside of themselves, which will be different from yours, but will be just as effective within their own lives. And your book certainly, I mean, I loved the fact that, you know, I saw the Tree of Life in there, and I saw the chakra system, and, you know, you brought it all in and related it to things that we could be aware of with the, and you mentioned it earlier, the chakra systems and the ley lines and how the energy of the earth calls to us in many different ways. I mean, primitive people, primitive, going way back, would notice where animals went when they were sick for healing and such, and when they saw how certain areas really did help the animals get better, that's where they built their villages, and that's where they built their centers of worship. And over time, that's where churches and cathedrals were built, because the energy there was one for healing and one for peace. So that we've identified those places, and we go to them for whatever reasons to soak up that kind of energy and awareness. So it's really important for us to understand and relate to it. What we do, not even consciously, is we're drawn to those energetic places like gardens and things like that. So it's important for us to recognize and be aware. I think that your book on many different levels is suggesting to people, be aware and flow with that awareness, and that will take you on the pathway you're seeking for enlightenment. You still there?
Yes, I'm still here. You know, but thank you so much for your kind words, and you know, I just hope that, you know, folks, you know, who are, you know, take the time to read the book, you know, are able to, you know, learn something from it, you know, not just the operative mechanics about the stone, you know, but the spiritual transformation that's discussed in it, you know, so that ultimately they have found a tool that they can use to improve their lives and those around them to become better than they once were. You know, and that's really what my goal is. As I stated earlier on, you know, I started out, you know, and I wrote the book because I had questions that I wasn't able to get answers for. And I figured if I had questions, many others had the same questions, and I had an obligation to try and help them if I had answers, or at least share what I had learned during the course of my journey. And, you know, we're all, you know, on the same journey. You know, it's just that, you know, we may be taking a different path, seeing different things along the way. But the journey, if we're seekers, is essentially the same. It's all about trying to answer questions that reside deep within us so that we can improve and hopefully, leave a legacy of improvement, once we depart this life.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that is important as well for people to hear is this is not a one-shot deal. You don't do one vision quest and you are enlightened and, can walk on water. It's a constant process. It's a constant journey. And, there will be moment after moment after moment after moment, initiation after initiation after initiation after initiation. It's not you do it once and then you're perfect. It's you do it once and you have another level to conquer. And then you do it again and then there's another level, another awakening. It isn't a one-shot deal. You aren't suddenly blinded by the light and can, again, walk on water. It's an opening of a portal to a new dimensional field, if you want, and that after a while the questions start to come again, and they're bigger questions, but you're ready, and I think that
right.
that
it's. Oh, I was just going to say it's a continuous cycle of growth and improvement.
Yeah.
It doesn't end. It's much like an Ouroboros, the serpent that's eating its tail. It continues. It just never ends. And, we just keep coming back and, along with, the idea of Buddhist thought, and reincarnation, we just hope that, we continue to do better, and come back as something that is, at a higher level than where we were previously, and not digress. But, it's a journey. It's a never-ending quest, a never-ending story. And I don't know, it's what we make of it. And it's important, to keep a positive attitude. And if you're looking at meditation, meditation is a vehicle for transformation, for spiritual transformation. And you can't begin meditating and expect that, okay, in the first session or two or three, that you're going to feel a difference or see a difference, or that folks will see a difference in you. I'll just be blunt and tell you that's probably not going to happen. The process takes a while. But in time, if you're, meditating or praying, changes will occur inside of you. And as those changes develop and mature and progress, other folks are going to notice those changes too. And they're going to ask you about it. Or they'll at least point it out and they'll say, there's something different about you. I don't know what it is, but there's something different. And you know what? That's a good thing.
Oh, absolutely. But it is. We don't achieve mastery. And I would probably suggest I've heard of or met people who other people would consider our master teachers or master guides or master whatever. And if you spoke with those people, they would say, hey, I'm on the same journey you're on. Don't put me on a pedestal, I'll fall right off. And it's sort of like, if somebody thinks you have arrived, what was the point of the journey? We're all on the same type of journey. And if you arrive, then there was no point.
Your journey's over.
There was no. Yeah, and so why are you here still? And it's kind of like.
Well, I'm gonna.
Life.
to tie this back. I'll tie this back into Charles and my book, and believe it or not, the tarot cards.
Okay.
If you're familiar with the tarot and the major arcana, the 0 card is the Fool. And if you're familiar, for example, with the Weight deck, and you're looking at that card, the Fool is this young person who's just kind of tripping along, clueless, not paying attention to the dangers that are around, regardless that the little dog is barking at him. And that's how we all begin our journey. Every one of us begins this journey, begins as a seeker, as a fool. We're clueless really where the journey's going to take us, how to frame our questions that we have so that we're asking the right questions. But as we progress down that path, as we climb the mountain of wisdom in search of, the mountain of knowledge in search of a flower of wisdom, as I did with Charles, we end up towards the mountaintop. And that's represented in the tarot by the number 9 card, where you've got this cloak-hooded hermit standing on top of a snow-capped mountain, holding a lantern up. And he's holding that lantern up so that it will illuminate the path for the fools to follow. It's not that he knows any more, than the fools. It's just that he's further along the path, along that path, and can illuminate the way through his experiences. And that's what Charles did for me.
Well, I got the feeling that he was actually sort of passing the torch as well. And I think in a way you're doing just that by writing of your experiences with him and sharing the process that he went through with you and guiding you through this particular gateway of your own evolution. And it's sort of like he's saying, take the experience that you learned with me and share it with others, and in that sharing, you'll go another step further. A lesson, a skill.
Isn't that what hermits do? Yeah,
absolutely.
Isn't that what hermits do?
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole
sort
point.
Of like
it's to illuminate others.
You're kind of as he was, a stopping point for a moment along a pathway that you're going in the right direction. Keep going, and that's what I love about the whole journey, because it is such an adventure. It's there are different phases of the journey for every person, and as you go through a phase and you feel yourself growing and expanding and realizing that, this is terrific. What do I do with it now? And the answer is live it and find another pathway to go on next, another level, another aspect of the reality to experience. And, each lifetime is just so magical. And to not understand that there's a purpose in each life, each phase of life, and there's magic. I mean, I talk magic all the time, and I don't mean bunnies out of the hat. I mean understanding that you have within you such amazing power and so many gifts, and people who do Reiki energy and share with that energy. There's so many different ways of taking what you've got inside of you, and in the utilization of that energy, you become a living lesson for other people. And everybody will take something different from it, which is really cool. That's what I love about the radio show. We put so much stuff out there, and it doesn't matter if no one's listening right this moment. The archives are out there forever, and people will touch into them and learn from them and grow from them. And it's not important that we know. I know that happens, but I don't necessarily see it happening. But I know it happens. And when you've written a book and you've put the book out there, you have no idea how many people are going to grow from it and take wisdom from it. And, you know, that's the excitement. That's why you're writing another book. And it's in your pulling the material together and getting an answer of sorts for yourself, that in that sharing will in many ways inspire others to do the same within their lives. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it is. You know, as you're what you're alluding to is the Akashic record. You know,
Yep.
You know, the information is out there, and it always has been. It's just, you know, whether we're able to tap into it or not. You know, but you know, I consider myself to be extraordinarily blessed to have been able to, you know, met Charles and spend time with him and to learn. And yet, as much as I might know Barb, you know, the thing is I've come to the realization I really don't know that much at all. You know, there's so much more out there to learn. You know, so our quest doesn't end. Our journey has no end. You know, not, you know, for those who are true seekers. You know, we just continue going as far as we can possibly go with it. And hopefully, as we travel that path, you know, we're able to help other pilgrims that we encounter, and continue to shine the light, to pass the torch, so that going forward, things are better and better illuminated than they have been in the past.
Well, you know, I think that the time we're living in now is so much more conducive. You know, I jokingly say that the way I spread the light at one time was being burned at the stake somewhere down the backward path. It's a time when being someone who's on a spiritual pathway is more or less accepted, much more so than it has been in the last 1,000 years, a couple of 100 years in this country especially, so that people are actually more involved in understanding the spiritual pathway than they ever have been before. And that spiritual pathway, while religion is often a stepping stone on it, it's not the end game, in my opinion. And it feels to me as though it's a wonderful time for those who are on a spiritual journey. And certainly your book is a wonderful roadmap for many different, you know, modalities to find an understanding of what spiritually they are going through. And that's what I loved about your book, because it did hit so many different levels and so many different areas that no matter what a person's persuasion is, they can find insight and crumbs to lead them forward on their own journeys. So you hit a broad spectrum of people.
Well, again, thank you so much for your kind words. And I enjoy hearing from different people, you know, their perspectives, you know, their views of these things, and I'll entertain questions. And if they would like to contact me, you know, if your audience would like to contact me, they can do that. I'm available on Facebook, my author's site, at R.E. Kretz on Facebook, and that's R.E. Kretz. Or you can go to my website. It's not much to it right now, but, you know, you can email me, you know, questions or provide comments on that website. And that site is stonedtemplar.com. That's stonedtemplar.com. com. And I'm always, I always enjoy, receiving feedback and having discussions with folks that, are interested in the book, have read it, or just have questions, in general about, my experiences or, with alchemy, and that sort of stuff. So I'm very open to it.
Well, you've also got the Masonic background too, which is another vehicle that we didn't get that much into, but it certainly is another vehicle and way of finding enlightenment. But we're almost out of time, so I do want to thank you so much. And the book again is the Alchemical Search for the United Field, Pythagorean, Hermetic, and Shamanic. Pardon the tongue twisting. And it's a wonderful book, and I highly recommend it. And it's been a joy to have you on the show, and I thank you so much for being flexible enough to kind of shove us off for a couple of days so we could get our sound right, because it makes such a difference to be able to put out material there so that people can really understand it and appreciate it. So I thank you so much again for being on the show tonight.
Well, again, thank you for having me. It's been an honor and a privilege to be your guest and to be able to share, some of my experiences and the book with your audience. This has really been great. Thanks.
Oh, you're so very, very welcome, and thank you. And also, please check out the book. My favorite part was Charles and who was the shaman, but the other parts of the book were great too. They were very insightful. You can always pick up something from things that may not be your venue in entirely, but the comparison he makes about putting the chakra system on top of the tree of life was really quite phenomenal. So please check the book out, and he's given his information, and if anybody has any questions, I'm sure they can write him, and I'm sure he would be delighted to hear from anyone who has a question or a theory. So good night, everybody, and I will talk to most of you next Monday. And, Sunday. Solaris and I are doing a show on Sunday, so please check us out there. Not sure what we're talking about, but I promise you it will be interesting for sure. Have a great evening, a happy Thanksgiving, and I will be talking to you again very, very soon. Good night, everybody.
Are you cooking your 7-bean dip again?
I know, I promised not to, but doesn't it smell good?
For now, yes, but we both know it's coming.
Speaking of gas, did you hear we're getting a BJ's Wholesale Club with everyday low gas prices?
Nice. Just think how much we'll save.
So I can make my bean dip?
Sure, if you want to sleep in the garage.
BJ's Wholesale Club is opening soon in Goodlettsville. Join now to get a $40 welcome reward at bjs.com/Nashville or visit the membership center in the Gallatin Pike North Plaza. Limited time offer, new members only. BJ's, absurdly simple savings.
Listen and care.